Welcome to the Poetry Podcast, a space for talking about teaching, writing, and teaching writing. I'm your host, Donnie Welch, a poet and children's author living in New York City. Now let's get to today's episode. Tell the New York City Council, arts are essential. So I'm starting with an action item. You can click the link in the show notes, and it'll take you to a phone bank with a script that you can tell your council member. The phone bank has a list of council members' phone numbers. You can just type in your address. It'll pop up your council member for your district. Makes everything really easy. They also have information there you can use to email, to tweet, or to reach out however you're most comfortable. So please check that out, and please do take action. The New York City budget deadline is tomorrow, June 30th, 2020, and there are a lot of things at stake, but education is one of them. There were recent layoffs to school counselors, while $450 million were promised to school police. No real measures or money is set aside for teacher and student safety in the potential September reopening, and an existential threat to arts education and the jobs of teaching artists throughout the city. It's this final point which I want to call attention to, as it's the one I can speak to most directly. Currently, there is $15.5 million for expanded arts instruction on a line in the 2020-2021 city budget. This money funds partnerships between the New York City Department of Ed and city cultural organizations. These partnerships enable teaching artists such as myself to come and run programs for students. While teaching artists might sound like an extra enrichment for those unfamiliar with our work, I assure you we're not. It's true, we are there specifically for art, and even more specifically, for the art we practice. However, it's our expertise and outsider status, so to speak, that gives us the ability to work differently, though in conjunction with classroom teachers. We can hone in and push the artistry, confidence, and self-advocacy skills of our students. For example, in my work, I'm able to center my poetry on voice and helping students discover, develop, and exercise their voice because I'm running poetry workshops, not facilitating an English language arts class with an assessment at the end. And this sense of voice is particularly powerful. In a study done by the Americans for the Arts, it was found that 4 out of 5 young adults who've had arts-rich experiences are more likely to vote or participate in a political campaign. And given the current movements unfolding across our country, this is a pretty powerful statistic to consider. Beyond this more abstract or social point, the loss of partnerships would leave some schools scrambling to meet the New York State arts learning standards and leave some students without any kind of art. In one school where I run sessions, my semester visit constitutes their art classes for the year. The classes I don't see are taught by a kindergarten teacher doubling her time as an old grade visual art teacher. This is unfair to her as an educator and to the students who aren't receiving instruction from a trained arts instructor. This isn't an indictment of that school or that teacher who's busting their tail for students, but it is a fiscal reality public schools face. I raised the point to call attention to the importance of these partnerships and to a broader point of defunding the NYPD to better fund public education. This broader call for equity has a resonance with the partnership funding as well. By the New York City Council's own reasoning and research, New York public schools remain deeply segregated. In a 2018-2019 study posted by the New York City Council data team, it was found that New York City public schools remain some of the most segregated in the country. In New York City public schools, 74.6% of Black and Hispanic students attend a school with less than 10% white students. Additionally, 34.3% of white students attend a school with more than 50% white students. For further research on this, I've also linked the Citizens Committee for Children of New York, a recent research project, which is really pretty illuminating. I give these statistics and I bring this up to say that the more affluent predominantly white schools will continue to have the budget, connections, and means to bring in teaching artists and facilitators. However, the highest need schools and District 75 schools, where I do most of my work, whose budgets are already tight, rely on the grants and support from these now threatened partnerships to bring in teaching artists and deepen their arts education. Cutting this $15.5 million will effectively end arts in many of these schools. This programming loss isn't just about paintings on refrigerators either. It has far-reaching impacts on these youth, their communities, and our cities. In a study from the same broad project, the Arts plus Social Impact Explorer, led by the Americans for the Arts, it was found that low-income students highly engaged in the arts are more than 2 times as likely to graduate from college than peers with no arts education. I ask you once again, please take 2 minutes to contact your city council member and tell them arts are essential. If you're not in New York, you can help by sharing this information publicly on social media or privately with any New Yorkers you know. And if you're reading this after June 30th or July 1st, which is when revisions may be submitted through, then you can still contact your officials to tell them thank you for protecting equitable arts education, or to tell them where your vote will be going next November. In closing, I'd like to share a quote from Thelma Golden, who's the director and chief curator of the Studio Museum in Harlem. For the sake of our young people and our neighborhoods, for the sake of equity, for the sake of New York's future, we ask that arts education in the schools be a funding priority. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe for more episodes, and don't forget, you can read the full transcript on the blog at DonnieWelchPoetry.com and listen to it as the Poetry Podcast wherever you like to listen. Until next time, keep writing and keep learning.